She's been silent for nearly a quarter of a century, her splendid voice stilled by progress. But in the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia, where this graceful giant was born, they still remember.
The Jay being alive, of course, is the greatest joy that we true rail fans have had in many, many years.
Well, it was so pretty. It just kept me in awe to looking at it. And then to think of getting to run it. It really did do something for a fella.
Now, this streamlined thoroughbred is running free and proud once again. Her old friends in the Blue Ridge have waited a long time to hear her familiar call, and the wait is nearly over. Number 611 is going home.
Everything was perfect. N&W, they built them good.
Norfolk and Western designed and built its own steam locomotives at its headquarters in Roanoke, Virginia. Although the railway built its reputation as a coal carrier, its most famous locomotive design remains the sleek simplicity chosen for a class of passenger engines known simply as the J, the most powerful 484 Northern design steam locomotives ever built. Between 1941 and 1950, Norfolk and Western built 14 of these racehorses, beginning with number 600. Right from the start, they were a special breed. They were, quite simply, the ultimate in steam design. The Jays pulled America's last fine steam train, the Powhatan Arrow, daily between Norfolk, Virginia and Cincinnati, Ohio, with each locomotive often rolling up 15,000 miles a month with a minimum of maintenance.
Mr. Walker was a road foreman, and when that 600 came out of the East End shop, all the engineers was nervous about getting to run her. And he told them finally, he said, well, boys, just go on out there and run her like you run all the rest of them.
Steam engines changed the face of this nation and then vanished. But for more than a century, those tireless workhorses were such a familiar sight that the design of a railroad's locomotives often became its identifying trademark. But even a J couldn't outrun progress.
The roundhouse foreman told me, said, this is the last trip it'll be used. You'll bring it back. Well, when we got to Bluefield then, they cut the 611 off, and that's the last passenger train they'd ever run on. Well, I hate to see it go, because we love those engines.
Number 611 escaped the fate of her 13 sisters. Instead of falling victim to the cutting torch and the scrap heap, she took a place of honor in the Roanoke Transportation Museum. She sat and silently waited. 22 years later, her wait ended.
When the decision was made to restore the 611, I was fortunate enough to cover the story when the engine was towed out of the Roanoke Transportation Museum. That was especially fortunate for me because, in addition to being a journalist, I've been a rail fan myself for a number of years. I remember it was a beautiful October morning when they began the activities to tow the engine out of the museum. About 200 people were on hand. There was one man there from Colorado. I believe another one had driven all night from Florida just to be there. And then the thing that I remember most prominently when they actually began the towing was the sound that the engine made, of the big pistons drawing air in and out through the cylinders. It sounded just like a person gasping for breath. And really, if you think about it, that's what the locomotive itself was doing. And of course, the tracks just creaked under the weight of the thing. And when they actually began to pull it out of the museum grounds, a lot of the people that were there seemed to be just mesmerized by what was happening, and they began to follow along behind the engine, almost as if it was some kind of gigantic Pied Piper, and these grown men and women were just little children.
In Birmingham, Alabama, Southern Railway operates the nation's only remaining full-time steam locomotive facility. And it is fitting that 611 has come here to be reborn. In the 1940s, Norfolk and Western and Southern jointly operated passenger trains over their rails, and these crack streamlined trains were often pulled by the power of J-class locomotives. Now, the two giant railways have consolidated to form the Norfolk Southern Corporation, one of the nation's largest and most modern railways. And the rebirth of the J is one of the first examples of the spirit of cooperation that exists between these two great partners.
Some of these threads are left-hand on these water column parts, so that looks like a left-hand thread to me. Just put it right on there, pull it back that way. Now watch and see if this comes or if the nut moves. I can't tell.
I wanted to show you the damage we found to this hot water pump here. Fellas got it off the engine and got it cleaned up. We've got a crack right in here.
That's almost impossible to wear.
Runs around right into the cylinder.
We can use it for parts.
Yes, we
Probably
can.
going to be finding another pump. That's the whole problem.
Well, there's a few other engines in the Roanoke Museum. They might have this size. I know they have the same type of equipment.
This will all have to be sandblasted.
This hole welded up.
We take that thing off, change all this equipment. We're going to have to drain these boxes and be sure that they're clean, that the plugs are all tight, all that sort of thing.
Sure.
We're going to have to run electrical connections back in now, because we're going to have this red light on the back. And we can just run it through from the engine through here, put a red light on the back of the trailer tank, and a red light on the back of this, in case you ever run the engine
You could
without
run
the
a
trailer tank.
conduit underneath the Henderson.
Right, yeah, that's the idea, that's the idea.
I expect to find a lot of water and rust, pitted bearings and everything. Amazing how condition they was in when they found that.
Where they wore excessively right along in here, where the engine works most of the time.
Where you cut off coming.
That's right. Get it out so the machinist can get a figure on it. Seats look pretty good.
On August 14, 1982, number 611 moved under steam for the first time in 22 years. "10 miles down the track, she stopped.
Admit that we should have gotten some oil. Maybe we'll screw that out and determine if that hole is open.
A mechanical lubricator wasn't oiling properly. It was a minor problem quickly solved, and the only one encountered. After that, she ran so smoothly that the scheduled 10-hour test trip to Chattanooga, Tennessee was completed in 5 hours.
All the sweat and blood and everything else, it was worth it. It was worth it after 10 minutes in that left-hand seat. The most fun I've had in 6 months of working down here. Running to Chattanooga and back.
And the next day, she turned in a flawless run back to Birmingham.
For all intent and purposes, she's the same locomotive now as she would have been coming out of the NW shop. It was built to do it, and it still can do it. I think all the men here deserve a lot of credit. They did a fine job. I think it's a super engine. In my opinion, it is the best steam locomotive running in the North American continent today.
I think it'd be just like yesterday. I don't think it'd be a little different. Reaching up and cutting the old water from bone.
Pull the throttle, you'd hear the intermittent puffs of the exhaust. The fire would brighten up. Smoke and steam would come from the start. And that's where the real romance of railroading is, in a steam locomotive.
1 week after her test run, the J begins the final leg of her journey home. Behind her lies a reminder of her past glories. A sleek, streamlined train filled with excited passengers. Ahead of her, crowds of people, many of whom have never seen a steam train, wait to wish her well.
People used to flock from hundreds of miles away, outlying points, just to make a short trip to ride the train and look at it and go back through to the diner and have a meal.
And in the Blue Ridge, her old friends remember.
It was the greatest passenger engine ever made. Today, I would say it would be sort of like the Columbia going up and flying around. That's the greatest thing in space, and we always felt like that the J was the greatest thing we could run on the railroad.
But there's a fire flood right dead center, and I've had them told them to get the fire hose fixed out there. All right.
On the Norfolk Division, that's west of Norfolk. It got up to a speed of 110 miles an hour with a 15-car, 1,025-ton train. That is remarkable performance for any locomotive.
Well, we come out of Lick Fork one night. He walked down, his little boy standing there. He said, "Son, has that pretty train went by yet?" He's talking about the house down there.
They were good riding engines.
Yeah,
There was never engine built that rode any easier than they did.
The J engine was a sweet running engine, no question about it. And with teamwork, as I said, you work together, you could pull a lot of cars, and you could handle a smooth train.
A steam engine is like a human being. It's not like a streetcar.
No.
It's what you can get out of it. Now, somebody might be able to get more out of you than I could. You see what I mean? Persuasion and so forth and so on. Well, the same thing goes for a steam engine. And you listen to the exhaust and watch the coal you consume and the water she's taking in. There's something up here that is hard to explain. It takes place to become an engineer.
So running a steam engine is a full-time business. There's no time for conversation.
There's an art to running the steam engine now, and you think you're doing all it's going to do. And you can get to fooling with it, and you can make it do more.
And they'd even get in the roads that run right beside the track and just go with you and try to race you and get you to race them. Oh, it was great. But we come down to Jug Neck and saw all those beautiful mountains, and I looked over at my fireman and I said, Pat, just think, they're paying us to do this.
Get to Roanoke on time today.
We have arrived.
Oh, she ran like a clock. If we'd had as many people as this come into the station in the days we ran passenger trains, we'd still be running them. Great crowd. Well, good afternoon, fellow Roanokers, fellow railroaders, and fellow rail enthusiasts. I'm going to introduce to you an old citizen of Roanoke. Roanoke born, Roanoke bred, and Roanoke proud. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you NNW's Class J number 611.
Man's creations have captured the imagination and spirit of so many people in a way that the steam locomotive has. They write songs about them, follow them in daredevil pursuits, and invest them with human qualities. And why, we wonder? Is it a living link with history, a nostalgic reminder of an era almost forgotten, a rekindling of the fires of our youth? Perhaps. Perhaps it is that complex. Or maybe it is something infinitely more simple and meaningful.
Well, I used to think that number 4 coming out of Williamson with 15 cars, with the lights burning in the coaches and the baggage cars. It was the prettiest train I ever saw.
Mountains came a streamlined machine built by the Kansas craftsman back in 1950. She was numbered 611. She's the finest in the state. She's the pride of the NNW, and she rolls again today. She's the finest steam train ever built, the 611 Class J. back in 60, but Norfolk Southern got her running again. Under steam she came to Roanoke, say welcome home, old friend. She's the pride of the NW, and she rolls again today. She's the finest steam train ever built, the 611 Class J. She's the pride of the NW, and she